Welcome to the Safari Yangu Podcast, where we tell our stories authentically, experiences that shaped us and experiences that continue to shape us. I'm your host, Miss Kimaru, and on today's episode, I would say it kind of saddens me to actually even think about it. I'll be focusing on what is happening in our Kenyan high schools, and I'll be giving my thoughts on the whole matter. And the question is, where are we failing as a society? Whose fault is this? And actually, what can be done? And I would like to give an example. I have worked with teenagers for the longest. I think for like about 10 years, I've worked with teenagers. And one time I started working with a group of teenagers. And I remember like there was a bit of resistance. I was running a training program for them. And there was this idea of, as a teenager, kids can be rebellious at some point, and others feel like, what, we actually don't want this and all that. And as an adult, I was feeling like, but this is very beneficial for you. It's a skills training program and it's gonna change your life. But I think from a teenager's perspective, at that particular point, which I had not necessarily envisioned, is they were not necessarily seeing my point of view. And this is not to make excuses for teenagers. I'm just trying to lay some background for you. And so, yes, that's how it actually went at first. And after a bit of struggle with these kids and going back and forth, others don't want to participate in particular programs. Some of them, they were like, what, we're not interested and all that. And then I asked the people around, what do you think can be done? And one of those days we had a conversation with them and we asked them, so what's wrong and what do we need to adjust? And somebody says, I don't want to participate in a particular program, say for example like crochet, because I believe crochet is for girls, or I don't want to do this because of that. And at that particular point, we give them a choice. We were like, if you don't want to participate in a particular program, you're exempted. Just write down your name. No one is going to take any action against you. Just write down your name and say which programs you want to be excluded from. And that particular point gave us sort of a consensus with these teenagers. And eventually, as this program kept going on and on, at some point, you would see some of them, even without asking or even conversation, they would now start coming back, because at some point they actually saw the need of actually doing these things. What's my point? Are we listening to our children? And with that, I would like to take a moment to think about what has happened at Utumishi Girls. It's actually a very sad thing, and my condolences to all the families who have had to, you take your child to school and the next thing you know, you're taking them, in a very bad state, and you're preparing burial plans and all these. And I can only imagine what is actually happening or going on in their minds. I've seen so many clips, and from the day this thing happened, there's just been some sadness that has sat with me, to actually think that young girls who had a lot of life and ambition and dreams, they went to school to actually work towards that, and they were never able to get home. They were never able to achieve their full potential, and now they are gone forever. And it really saddens me. And I want us to think about the girls who did this. And I have been reading a lot of online comments, and people, they're talking about these girls should be punished, these girls should go to jail. And then there are those who would come to the comment section and write, I am a mother, I am a parent, so in this case I'll just chill and not say anything. But my question is, how well do you know your son or your daughter? How well do you know them? And I want you to sit with that question as a parent. I'm not one, but as I said, I have worked with so many little boys and girls and teenagers, and I know what it feels to sort of be a caretaker of kids to some extent. But do you know your child? And I would like to us to look at the system. In the Kenyan system, a child, you're in class 1, class 2, most of the times you're actually home. By the time you join grade 4, I would think, yes, around grade 4, which was used to be class 4, most parents ship their kids out to boarding school. And when they're in boarding school, because of the school terms and how they are, you hardly see your child. And your child, from when they are around 9 to 10 years, they become the burden of the school or a system. And when you get to see them, it's during a school holiday, especially for people who actually go to boarding school. You only see them during a school holiday. And for most times, a lot of parents out here, whether by design or whatever has happened, they end up taking their children for tuition. Maybe there's a certain school somewhere. I know the government has abolished tuition and all that, but we all know behind the scenes, it still happens. Or if not, even on that Saturday or on that day you're supposed to spend time with your children, you are somewhere hustling and you hardly see them. And most of the times, by the time your child becomes they are called preteens. Yes, before they become a preteen, they become a teen. You actually don't know your child. And this child, a lot is changing. A lot is changing in these children. They're becoming self-aware. They're becoming teenagers. And there's a lot that goes in a child's mind. I was a teenager once. And we all know, even for you who is watching this video, you are a teenager at some point. And we all know what happens to teenagers. And I feel like, I don't know, I kind of feel like right now, with the way that system, particularly what I have described is, I feel like there could be a loophole. What do you think? Do you think there's a loophole? Because you, as a parent, you hardly know your child. They come home after being in school, they spend very little time with you, or you spend very little time with them. And even for the kids who are in day school, right now, the kids who are in day school and they go to school up to even Sunday because of KCSE. Others go to school until Saturday. And on Sunday, maybe you go to church, you hang out for just a few minutes. Kids are on their gadgets a lot of times. Kids are on TikTok dancing. Kids are out here hanging with their friends. Maybe they ask you for cash. They're like, Mom, I want to go to the mall. You give them the money, they go. But at what point as a parent do you spend time with your child so that you can actually get to know them? Or as a parent, are you leaving this burden to a teacher? On the other hand, teachers used to discipline kids, but nowadays a lot has changed. I'm not saying we should go back to corporal punishment, but a lot has changed. And even their parents who show up to school because maybe their kids was given some level of punishment that did not please them, and they're like, hey, you should not touch my child, I don't know what. The teacher cannot discipline your child, and you as a person is not disciplining your child. Or, on the other hand, some teachers feel my work is to teach. After that, I am done. I shouldn't bother with whatever is happening in this institution. So you as a parent are not disciplining your child, and also a teacher who should also maybe probably discipline them to some extent is also not bothered. Because why? Maybe even for them they feel like it's not in their place to do it. So who is disciplining our child, and what level of discipline again? Because there have also been cases of where people, or even schools, or even parents, where they have also been like over-disciplined children, and children have also been harmed. So where do we find a balance? What do we do in a society where there's all these things happening at the same time? And what can we do to bring our kids in a better environment, to do better and become responsible teenagers and adults? When I look at what happened at Utumishi Girls, I feel like, apart from those things I've talked about, I feel like there's a lot of factors that could have played into this. Like when we were in high school, there's usually a lot of peer pressure. You want to behave a certain way, you want to fit in a certain crowd, you want to do certain things so that you can be accepted and recognized. And sometimes that could be banning a school. For some students, They're out there trying to fit in. They're out there trying to prove a point. Because trust you me, by the time they were banning this school, I do not think it was the idea of all the 9 who are now in court. It could have been an idea that came from probably 1 or 2 people or 3. And then they influenced the rest to actually do, take action. It usually starts like that. It's never like, oh, we all want to ban the school. No, there's usually a ringleader and they influence other people and now they start taking action. But also my question is, where did we, even as a society, whether you have children or not, where did we drop the ball to an extent where just a teenager can wake up, I saw that CCTV footage, can wake up and go to a dormitory with mafuta. They actually start burning right from where these kids could escape from. Where did we go wrong? How did we get to this point where kids can just go and touch a whole dormitory that has kids sleeping? Na wanaanzia kwa mlango where you can't actually, there's no way to escape. Ni kama you've just trapped them. What goes on in that child's mind? Because I kind of feel like, where did empathy go? At what point did you also drop the ball where even kids, like there's no empathy? Because I kind of feel like, okay, you're aggrieved. All right, you're aggrieved. But to get I feel like it's one thing to actually think about something, but to execute it in such a way and to actually go down and literally burn a whole dormitory with kids inside, by the time somebody alikuwa na light up that much, I think at this point, it's either they are mad or they are so supercharged and they don't actually care what really happens. So again, how well do you know your student? How well do you know your child? How well do you know your niece, your nephew, or that kid you're supposed to be taking care of? How well do you know them? The other day, I went for a mentorship session somewhere in some high school, and I was talking to kids, and the more you start listening to these children and what is happening in their lives, and you realize the most basic things. Teenagers sometimes just want to be heard, and that's what counts most. But in the system we grew up in, actually a lot has not changed. First, for us, we grew up in a society where a lot of times the people in authority, whatever they say goes, whether it's at home, and I talked about this in another episode, whether it's at home or at school or wherever. That's why ukisimamishwa na polisi, you're like, unaogopa. Politician akifanya kitu, we used to ogopa. Oh, we didn't even used to ask questions until 2024 when the maandamano happened. So in Kenya, we've grown up in a society where basically most of the times we were not allowed to question authority. Whatever authority says goes. And to tell you the truth, that is exactly what is still being implemented in schools. Rarely do the admin listen to students. It's usually whatever the admin says, it goes. And there's nothing you can do about that. And as I said, if we were to look at the psychology of young people, and especially teenagers, a lot is happening to them at that particular point. And sometimes all they need is a listening ear. But as an admin in a school, are you listening? Or for you, it's whatever they say, whatever you say goes, and whatever they say, it's like now you label them as rebels or whatever. Because what happens in a lot of schools, and it happened even I think when we were in high school, for most students, even when we gather somewhere and we start talking about our high school experiences, you realize some of these experiences just cut across. You say things, you want things to be done, maybe because you're outspoken, you are labeled a rebel, and action is taken against you, unaanza kuonewa and all that. And sometimes kids just want, even if you don't implement, they just want you to listen. I'll give an example. My former high school, we used to have something we call the baraza. The baraza used to happen every single Friday. after classes, and we would meet with the director of the school, as a whole school, and maybe the deputy, or even if there was a teacher who wanted to attend, but most of the time it used to be the director and the deputy. And at this particular baraza, you are allowed to air out your views and say what's up without being judged. So you just raise your hand. And I think this is something I feel that should be implemented in our schools. You'd raise your hand, and if you're chosen, you are asked to speak out, and somebody's taking notes. And you'll be like, sometimes we are asking for hot water. We just want to shower with hot water. Sometimes maybe somebody wanted to complain about something that happened, or they wanted to complain about food and all these. And they used to listen. For some of those things, they would be upfront. They'd be like, this one might not be implemented. This one will take time. This one we will implement ASAP. And sometimes some of those were made as promises. But the fact that they listened, it gave us this feeling of, I've been heard. And that's all we needed to do. To just be given that platform to speak up. And that, I think, should be implemented in all schools. Have a baraza. Let children air out their issues so that they don't escalate to a level where kids are burning a dormitory. We do not need kids to die so that other kids can make a point. Listen. Find a way. And another issue. Kids out here are going through a lot of mental health issues. And I know growing up, I sound very old now. People never used to listen to us. It used to be like, you are going through your mental issues on your own. You grapple through all these things. But right now, there's psychologists, therapists, all these manner of people who can help kids with mental health issues. Does your school, even as a parent, when you're admitting a student in a particular school, do you ask these questions? Does your school have a counselor? Is this counselor reliable? If you ask a lot of people, you would actually hear there is probably a counselor in their school. But what happens to these people? Sometimes the counselor is also a teacher, not necessarily a professional, or I don't know what. And the next thing you know, you go tell them your business, and your business is in the staff room, it's in classes. You hear a story being told somewhere, you're like, and that what I told the counselor? So, as institutions, are we hiring the right people to actually cater for these cases? Because these are supposed to be very confidential matters. This is not something that somebody who is not a professional should handle. And even if they are a professional, are they professional enough to not come and air your dirty laundry to everyone? And then that becomes the point of, that's the thing that people take you for and they will use against you. Think about it. As a parent, a lot of times I have spoken to a lot of parents. They actually don't even know what happens in the schools where they take their children. Are you asking these questions? Again, I kind of feel like I was having this conversation a while back about also how most parents are not involved in school matters. It's like you dump your students in the school, you don't know what happens, anarudi home holiday, unamrudisha tena akirudi shule for the next term, and that's it. Do you have a parents meeting at the school where you are allowed to even ask questions about what happens, or even you are allowed to make some simple decisions or suggestions that could cater or enhance the experience of your child? Or you are just there, umesikia tu shule imefunguliwa unampeleka and that's it? Even as parents, are you guys asking questions? Are we asking, as guardians, are we asking the right questions? I don't think the school should be the final custodian of your child. You should also have a say as a parent. It's your child at the end of the day. And school is a phase. If they're in high school, for example, 4 years max and they're out. And after that, you'll still get back your child. So even during this phase, even as they're in school, they're still your child. Ask those questions. Ask questions about safety. Ask questions about what they eat. Ask questions about their mental health. Ask these questions. We cannot just sit and allow the school system to be the only thing that safeguards our children. Your child comes and tells you they've been harassed by a teacher or in school or whatever has happened to them. Take it serious. Take it serious and go to that school or whatever action you need to take. But ask those questions. Don't just sit down and wait for time to elapse. As a parent, don't neglect your responsibility of parenting your child and leave it to the school. Do your part. And as a school, are you having fire drills? I remember when I was in high school, actually, we used to have fire drills. Literally, our school, we used to have fire drills. And we would assemble somewhere. There would be a whole head count of who is missing, where are they, and all that. We used to have those fire drills in case of an emergency. So, the school you're enrolling your child to, and even as admin, do you guys have safety measures for your school? Is there enough water? Are there fire extinguishers? Is there a place your kids can gather when there is an alarm that goes off or whatever? Do you even do fire drills so that kids can know what they can do if in case there is a fire? What does the structure of your school look like? Are there exits that actually cater for such a chaotic time when kids need to run? Because I hear a lot of kids were admitted at the hospital. Of course, probably they have broken limbs or whatever because they're trying to jump. But do you have that? So, as a school, are you looking at this? And as a parent, do you ask questions and even want to see where your child sleeps? And as a government, what are you doing to safeguard our children overall? Like, for example, if a school is building a dormitory, do you allow them to cut corners, or are you doing inspections maybe every year or something of the sort? Because if the government is not even doing some of these things, what do we expect? If our government allows stuff like that to happen when there is a whole Ministry of Education and these are children, what else do we expect to happen? We all have a role to play to actually safeguard kids. And if we don't, that is exactly what happens. Right now, there's a lot of schools that are actually being closed indefinitely because of the idea that there might be a strike, there might be fires going on. There are some that have, like I think 2 that I had, there was 2 extra fires. But for the schools that have actually closed down, maybe it's okay. Maybe the Ministry of Education should give kids half term. Wacha waende home. Hata kama mtawapatia like a long half term, 2 weeks, or even a week or so. They go home, talk to their parents, they cool down, and they come back to school. School is not going anywhere, and 1 week of missing lessons will not make a big difference. After all, there was COVID and kids survived. They caught up. They will catch up. If we need a break, let kids go home. Let them go home, talk to their parents, talk to their guardians, talk to their aunties and uncles and whoever cares to listen, and let them decompress. And by the time they come back to school, they'll be in a better place and in a better space. Above all, what are we all doing? What are we all doing collectively as a society? It's our responsibility. There's a child in your compound, talk to them. You don't have to be their parent. Talk to them. Listen to them. Hear them. Reassure them. Affirm them. And let them know that there's better ways to actually go about, about maybe whatever, even if they're feeling aggrieved. There's better ways to go through that. There's better ways to address issues without banning their peers in a dormitory. We need to do better, and it takes a village in this case. From the school administration, parents, aunties, uncles, neighbors, the government, all of us, we are stakeholders in this. And there's no shortcut, but we really need to do better. We can't allow kids to be dying in school, at home, or whatever. And even this case of kids disappearing and being kidnapped, it's a collective responsibility. So, who is really to blame for this? Is it the school administration? Is it the parents? Is it as all of us as a society? Is it the government? Or is it those girls? Could they have been going through mental issues? Could they have already been trying to tell their side of the story, but no one was listening, and they felt that they needed to really make a big point by burning the school down? And again, I do not condone what happened, and I hope the law can actually take due course, and the kids who passed on can get their justice, and these other ones can learn a lesson from this particular experience. We need to do better. Until the next time, I've been your host, Miss Kimaru. Please let me know in the comment section what you think can be done about this particular situation. Until the next time, bye.